Whiskey
Tango
Life podcast.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris and I'm here with Stephen Bowling of Prometheum. And tonight we're going to talk about what the society is about, how they operate, and stories about what may come out of some experiences here within Prometheum and also the Foundation. So Stephen, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
So why don't we start with where this idea came from? Where did you start Prometheum? What were the beginnings of it to kind of evolve to where we're at today?
It started a while back, actually in the 90s, early 90s. And Mike, I'm from an Italian family, a lot of cousins, and we would weightlift together, we would socialize together, meaning we'd go out to bars. And every Thursday we would lift, we would then make dinner, and then have some kind of conversation. And as I don't know anything about sports, I happen to like philosophy and politics, we talked about that. From there, it grew into an organization with bylaws and discussions and guests and such.
Awesome. So your family beginnings, would you say that you guys were mostly on the same page as far as political and philosophical, or did you actually have some opposing opinions within your own family too that caused those interesting conversations?
It was both. There's some things we agreed on, and there were some things we didn't, because we talked about a vast amount of subjects. It wasn't always political, and we would go at it, good-naturedly, at the dinner table. We did. It was fun. It was a lot of fun. And
Prometheum sounds like an Italian dinner table.
It does, doesn't it? It does. A lot of yelling.
Lots of hands thrown.
Yelling, hands moving around. My hands are always moving around.
What now? Your membership has been fluctuating around, and a lot of it has to do with the COVID situation, as we've talked about before. But where were you sitting, let's say pre-COVID, as a good barometer for membership?
About how many?
How many?
We had about 100 members. We were growing. We had a lot of interest in the club. We do something I think that's unique. You're allowed to give your opinion without any repercussions of whatever your opinion is. And a lot of men and women too, but look for that. You can't really get that today. Today, not only can you not talk about politics or religion or whatever the things you're not supposed to, you can't talk about much of anything without someone taking offense and shutting you down.
Well, it seems like it's because everything's been politicized.
Yes.
You mentioned that you're not really into sports, but someone like me who watches the NFL, I can't even turn on the NFL anymore. I was just saying to someone the other day that for a while there in the last 2 years, I knew don't tune in for the first couple minutes for the national anthem. As much as I respect the national anthem, I didn't want to have to see someone politicizing it and kneeling on the field or doing whatever it was they were going to do, So I would miss the first 5 minutes or so. Okay, mentally, I think I'm prepared to go back into the game now. And then you tune in and you're like, everything's safe, it's football, everything's all right. And then the commercials come on. And you're just inundated with politics throughout the commercials because they know that they have you by the throat again there.
Instead of being able to enjoy a football game and the commercials that come on. One interesting thing, not to take a side on the kneeling, that's not the important part. The interesting thing to me about all that was the lack of understanding of the freedom of speech. Whatever side you're on that issue, there was in many ways, a lack of understanding what the principle of the freedom of speech is constitutionally and in our society. And that's one of the things that we talk about. Freedom of speech, we talk about it in all the things that we do in the Prometheum. We talk about those principles. And again, whatever side someone wants to be on is up to them. They just have to argue their point and use their reasoning to do it.
Which kind of goes into the types of people that come into your membership, right? So it's not a one-sided thing where people are standing up and giving one opinion here in the room. You kind of welcome almost everybody.
We do. There's no sign at the door, and you have to have this particular political philosophy or that. We've had men of all kinds of philosophies, from the whole spectrum, which is what we want. We want that diversity of thought, and it makes it much more interesting. Guys are very strong in their political views, although people have changed their mind in the Prometheum, and that's the beauty part of it.
Let's talk about, real quick, where's the name Prometheum come from, so people understand it?
We're basically based on something Benjamin Franklin did in the 1700s, and he started something called the Junto. And got tradesmen together. They shared books and they shared ideas. They talked about political issues and philosophy. They started libraries and hospitals. We don't start hospitals or anything, but we do argue about things and discuss things. So we're basically Franklin-centric, if you will. We do a lot of things with all the founding fathers, but we're basically based on Franklin and that organization. And Prometheus was the ancient Greek titan that brought fire to man, which he got in trouble for, and which is basically knowledge. He brought knowledge to man, which is what we seek. We seek that fire of knowledge. And Franklin, through his experiments in electricity and starting his own country, basically, both events which changed the world, it was said that Franklin stole fire from the skies and scepter from the scepter from tyrants, which I love that quote. And he was called the modern Prometheus. So we coined the term Prometheum.
Nice, and that's where the symbol comes from as well.
Yes,
The
fire
flame.
Fire of knowledge, Prometheus, the whole thing.
Okay. Why don't you bring me through when people gather in Prometheum, right? What is the kind of activity that evolves from it? Obviously, you have debates and stuff like that, but how do you come about picking the topics? What other kinds of activities do you guys get involved in? Maybe events or anything of that nature as well?
Sure, I'll talk about the topics first. We have, sometimes we have more casual nights where we don't have a prepared topic. And then we have dinners where we do have a prepared topic. And I'll start with the dinner. When we have a dinner, there's a limited amount of seats because I moderate it, and you can only moderate so many. You can only have a good conversation and a dinner type of thing with so many people. And we top out at about 22 or so. And that's, everybody knows what the topic is going to be. I read about 2 pages introduction in case somebody's not familiar with a lot of the things of the topic. So I read about 2 pages of it. And then we have a very in-depth conversation and discussion about the topic. The casual debate is we meet, there's socializing for a good while, and then we start a debate. It goes about an hour or a little more. And that's a topic we'll pick at the time. And I'll ask around the room if anybody has a particular topic. And of course, at the end, I have everybody vote, and I pick what topic I want to pick. As the moderator, I decide what it is. And I try to pick something that's a little bit more on the philosophical realm. Everyone can jump in on that. And something that's going to get some disagreement in the room. I mean, if everybody's agreeing, there's not a lot of fun in that.
Right.
You also mentioned about what kind of events we have. We're also a social group. We have barbecues. We have speakers come in. We have music. Bands and things come in. We're a group for all facets of intellectual pursuit and enjoyment. I mean, we want to experience a lot of things.
Going back to the debate format, as a moderator, it must be pretty interesting for you to go into these topics. You have to keep basically neutral, right? Do you have kind of a strategy for that, and how you approach being a moderator and dealing with both sides of the opinions?
A strategy. What I do, I'll tell you what I do. Whatever side is not being taken, I will take, and I will often question the person who has the floor at the time. I'll question them on their view with the opposite view. And is it hard sometimes? I suppose, but because sometimes I take a view that I completely disagree with. But my job is to make sure those views are represented, and we question our reasoning. That's what we do. We try to question our reasoning. A lot of guys sometimes get upset with me because I'd be bringing up one particular view that's not being taken quite often in a particular night, but that's what we do. And at the end, though, I will comment. I will give an opinion, my own opinion at the end.
What's interesting about that is the fact that, which is something I believe, you need to know the opposing argument as well as you know your own argument in order to combat what's going to be thrown at you at any given point in time. So when you're talking to someone that may have a similar opinion as you, you're really trying to poke and prod them to defend their position by using the knowledge that you've gained from possibly other members or just your ability to listen to, whatever sources are out there, to kind of dig out of who you have talking some more information. Hey, really, give us some backbone on this, in a sense.
To be, at least from my point of view, to be a moderator, you have to be quick on your feet. You have to see everything going on at once, but you also have to be able to come up with that opposing side. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to figure out what is that opposing side that they're doing, and how do I challenge them on that. The one good thing about doing that as a moderator, but also as a club, is that if you don't hear the opposing side, how do you know you're correct? How do you know that your opinion holds scrutiny if you don't at least hear the other side? And sometimes the other side, whatever that other side is, sometimes they've got a good point, or sometimes they're correct. Mm-hmm. We're not perfect. We all don't always have the right view of things. And what we look to do, at least what I look to do, is to look for truth. I mean, I don't get paid by the Republican Party, the Democratic Party, the Green Party, any party. Nobody gives me anything. I have no stake in anything. I look for truth. I look for truth in governance and in philosophy, and whatever the best argument is the one that I look for, and I think our guys try to as well. And I do have very strong opinions, right, but I'm willing to change my mind if I hear a better reasoning.
When it comes to the debate format, what is the environment like as far as tension in the room, and how do you modulate that? It's not, it depends on what the topic is, but it's not really tense. It's because everybody in the room's used to the debate. Everybody's very friendly. The debate, again, they all have very strong opinions, and there's some passion goes up. But as a moderator, I keep a very strong, I keep the room in check in a lot of ways, because it's not fair to everybody if you don't. And if you let it go, it can quickly go to, people jumping around and animals, swinging from the chandeliers. But I also, there's a lot of humor that goes on, and also you do learn as a moderator to sometimes let the energy come up, but then you bring it back down, and that's the fun part of it as mm-hmm. well. I mean, not everybody here is a PhD. I mean, they're just a lot of average men and smart men, in everybody's own way, and you do want to bring that passion up, but you also want to keep discipline in the room so you have a good conversation. And then afterwards, everybody is very friendly, and then they can continue the conversation any way they like. Part of Prometheum is that you've also set up kind of a foundation for it as well, with opportunities to get out there into the public and bring this format out and be a benefit to society around you, especially in the local area up here. So why don't you tell me the types of activities that the foundation gets involved in, and sure, maybe the values of that, and where you want to see that go in the future even. Our foundation, the Prometheum Foundation.
Democracy, a republic, a democracy, a free society needs discussion and debate. It needs it. I believe the founding fathers of our system knew that very well, and that's in a lot of ways being stifled. And again, whether people agree with it or not, it's up to them, but it's not good for society. It doesn't matter which side of the argument you're on. People needed to talk about things. In fact, we often talk about democracy, but without disagreement, you don't have democracy.
Right.
You don't have a marketplace of ideas, as Oliver Wendell Holmes might have said. You need that. We need that that discourse, and discourse has become coarse, if you will. We try to put civility back into discourse. So one of the things that we do is go to the high schools, and we have what's called the Franklin Forum, and we get the students to discuss philosophical and governance and policy, not in a feel-good way, but in a reasoned way, where they are challenged, they are free to speak their mind, The same rules in the Prometheum organization are the same for the Franklin Forum. There's no titles. Everybody comes in, their name's the first name. Titles give you an edge. We want you to, your only edge is your reasoning. There's no preferences. It doesn't matter who you are. Your opinion is as good as the opinion of a sophomore. Maybe not as experienced, the sophomore, but it's as good. There's no repercussions. There's no personal attacks. We seek the truth. We seek debate. We seek the debate. There is no political agenda. The only thing we try to do is get them to think, and we try to get them to think about governance, about public issues, about philosophy, and about the Constitution. They can come up with whatever they want, but they should think about it, and they should have thought about it. One last thing, though, too, on this is that we try to I think we make better students from this. They really enjoy it because they're free to express their opinion. But I also think we make better citizens in the long run because as they get older, they want to know the public discourse. They hopefully will want to vote, but more importantly, they'll think about for whom and what they're voting. I think that's important in society as well.
When you're actually in a high school environment, right? Someone like yourself and myself have a great regard for the Constitution. How do you bring it down to something that they can grasp?
Sure.
Because sure. I think you and I would probably both agree that education on the Founding Fathers, the Constitution, and a lot of the historical context of what America was founded on has been pushed to the wayside, kind of washed a little bit up, or even muddied, I guess you could say, in some senses. And there's almost like a lack of interest in these things anymore. Actually, as a matter of fact, you're actually starting to see a lot of school curriculums get rid of the older things in favor of more modern social movements and everything, and teaching those instead. So how would you get high schoolers interested and grasping concepts of the Bill of Rights?
Well, to your initial question, whether it's whether they like the Constitution or not, it's a document they live under. Right. So I'm not trying to tell them to like it, don't like it. It is the law that they live under, so they should at least know it, and if they want to change it, they should know what they're changing at least. And the schools do teach, it seems like, I don't know about all schools, but they seem to teach about the Constitution as if it's an ancient relic, that's really irrelevant. And it couldn't be farther from the truth. But that's another discussion. But how I get students into talking about constitutional issues is I bring up a subject that is interesting to them, and then we bring it along into the constitutional issues. And that could be censorship of music videos or something they're very interested in, and then you bring up censorship and freedom of speech. You bring those things up. The intellectual, taking of, say, intellectual property, like downloading certain things that you shouldn't be downloading, movies or music or something, and we bring that into the property rights and constitutional issues. So the way I do it, the way we do it, is get them hooked on what they're interested in, and then bring it into that philosophical constitutional world, and it works very well. And they're good. They enjoy it. They like it.
What would you say? Have any reactions really stood out to you of students that you just maybe sat back and were really happy that you saw the light bulbs going off in a sense? That for the first time, maybe the chain was pulled for the first time.
It's the one thing I like about the students. We're in some way stayed in what we think. They're willing to change their mind. They're willing to think about something. And some of the ones who I remember particularly that just really made me smile is that you'd ask them something or challenge them something on some of their reasoning, and they would pause, and you could see the gears turning and them thinking through it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they'll say, yeah, you're right. That's, I don't have an answer to that or whatever. Very honest. I think that's a wonderful thing to see. One thing that surprised me along your question, one thing that someone says, have I noticed any, through doing it all these years, been doing it quite a long time, have you noticed anything through all those years? One thing that I have noticed with the students is how quickly they'll give up their freedom and their liberty, how quickly they'll they'll say, yeah, we have to do this, even though the repercussions of that are taking away a certain amount of liberty. I also find that in adults, in fairness.
Oh yeah, I think that's the total of society today.
And some people might say that's okay. That's what we do. But I don't think a lot of people understand what they're doing. If they want to do that, if that's their reasoning, that's up to them. I may or may not agree with it, but I don't think a lot of the students, especially, or even the adults, understand that's what they're doing. So when we do a Franklin Forum, when I moderate, I kind of tell them what the repercussions of what they just said. And a lot of times they'll say, well, I didn't mean for that to happen. I said, well, that's what you just said. Yeah. And then their gears will turn and they'll start thinking about it.
Have you ever had, either within the context of the forum or even afterwards, teachers come to you? Let's say in the forum first. Did a teacher ever jump in without their title of being a teacher and kind of give their position in the forum format? Or has a teacher ever come to you afterwards and kind of given you feedback on, my students are acting differently now in the classroom?
Oh, yes, yes. Yeah, we had, I don't want to say quite a lot, but it's happened enough where we had one young man. It was a school for kids who were having a lot of personal issues, and this was kind of a last resort for them. And we went into that school and we did the Franklin Forum. And it was a little more difficult to do, because they're not kind of used to, I guess, paying attention. I don't know. I'm not a teacher, so. But the head of the school said that after a few sessions, that young man actually was much more sociable and didn't talk to anybody. He started talking to people. There's something about debate, if you will. As humans, we all seem to like to give our opinion.
Right.
And especially we like it when our opinion is taken seriously. I mean, we just like that. So if you're in high school and you have adults in the room who are on equal footing as you, and not only do they take your opinion seriously, they take it seriously enough to argue with you about it. Say, I disagree with you, and you can disagree with them. It's like magic. It makes you feel great. It makes you feel I don't know what it makes you feel. I mean, it makes them feel great, and they open up. I think they start to think a little bit differently. They start to have more self-confidence and more self-esteem. That's the other thing about our high school program that comes out of it. A lot of these kids do really develop much more self-esteem and self-confidence. And I think they also develop the ability to listen a little bit more, they develop the ability to extrapolate from an argument that they're listening to and then to answer with their own opinion. All those things I believe are vital, and I think it does make good students. I think it does make them more interesting, and I think it makes better citizens.
It's almost like some of those people that had the self-esteem issues were never given an opportunity or a space to come out of their shell, and this is kind of just an introductory step into doing that.
I think that's exactly it. How many times do you, as a high school student, get to talk to adults on an equal playing field? Usually you're talked down to. Usually you're told what you should think, particularly in schools. I mean, this isn't anything new, but most of them are not going to argue with their teacher. I mean, they're not dumb, and sometimes they're not allowed to, but they're not going to argue with their teacher about much of anything. And here they can freely express what they think, and we've gotten a lot of feedback from the students of that. They say they feel great because the first time they could do this. They can do it among their peers, but they can't do it among what they might consider adults, because they're not that level, and they don't ever get the opportunity, at least most of the time.
Right.
And a lot of times when they do, I would think it's more about how you feel, or I don't know. It's not about constitutional issues or societal issues or things like that.
Right. So that's where the foundation is now. What kind of aspirations do you have for the foundation and branching out more possibly?
I'd like to go certainly nationwide with the Franklin Forum. I think it's important for kids. I really do. I think it helps them tremendously.
Almost like a club in schools, right?
A club, or a club, sure.
or just
an
an
after-school
assembly,
activity,
yeah.
or even if they wanted to do it in the schools, we're open in any way they want to do it. It takes whatever time the class goes or whatever time we're allotted.
Yeah.
We want to do that. We want to. Part of the other things that the Prometheum Foundation does is we hold public debates for candidates. We want to branch out into doing it for issues, get a panel and have these public debates and discussions. When we do it for candidates, we work very hard to make sure that they're fair. We're not looking to embarrass anyone. We want to make sure that the electorate, whomever they might be, can see the candidates. They can make up their own decision. Again, there's no agenda to it.
Let me ask you something personal as a moderator then, okay? When you watched the debates of the presidents this past year, and at the time of this recording and everything, it was Trump and Biden at the time, right? What were your thoughts on just how it was controlled, that environment?
A couple things. One, and we're even struggling with this in some ways, but one, presidential debates, along with all these other debates, aren't really debates. They're more interviews, if you will. And maybe Kennedy Nixon were more debates, I suppose. But we really don't have that anymore. That's a problem just in general. Not taking any sides on this, but I watched a lot of the primary debates. I've watched debates throughout the years. I'm one of those junkies who likes that stuff. And a lot of times the moderators are asking questions that are made to elicit a particular response. I don't think that's fair. And I have seen some, although it's more rare, but some of the moderators are more inquisitive. That's the way it should be. So I think a lot of the current debates that I've seen were more of that we won and I got you moment.
Right.
And I don't think that's fair to the electorate, and I don't think it's fair to those men and women up there.
And part of the Prometheum kind of values, right, is that you don't attack the person.
Yes.
And you're a gentleman to them and everything.
Yes.
That seems to be completely out the window.
Yeah, I suppose
on both sides.
I suppose it is. I mean, in the Prometheum and in the Franklin Forum, and when we do debates, you can be passionate. You just have to be civil about it.
Right.
You can't. Our rules are you can attack the argument as much as you want, but you cannot attack the person. You can't attack them personally, and that's important. And I think even in a presidential debate or gubernatorial debate or such. You shouldn't. You should be attack. You shouldn't be attacking the person. You should be attacking their argument.
So how would you go about a political race, right? Where, let's just say it's local mayors running against each other, right? And policies are obviously different, but something happened in the personal life of one of those candidates that could seriously impact an actual candidate holding office, right? I think, one interesting thing I found was, this was a couple of years ago now, General Petraeus, right? He obviously was doing some wrong things with computer communications with another woman or something like that. And I thought to myself, well, this doesn't really have to do with his job, But then I heard an opposing argument that if this were somehow a spy situation where the other woman was a spy, right? And we see that with Eric Swalwell, right?
Sure.
The Chinese spy.
Yeah.
That if they're put into a situation where they can then be blackmailed to do things in their political office that could affect the taxpayers or constituents of that person, how would you go about in a Franklin forum format going after those, I guess, traits of a person that put in danger what the office is?
Well, it's not in that example. We can; those are perfectly open. You can go after the traits of a person you're discussing. You just can't go after. You can't go out. I can't. If you say I think X, and XXX, and I can't say you're a horrible person for thinking X.
Okay.
What I can say is that it's wrong, it's Y, and here's the reasoning behind it. But again, I'm not going to attack you. If there's a political figure who has traits that might affect things in his or her office, that's fair game.
Okay.
We don't stop that. In a debate, how I would ask somebody that question, I'm not sure. We would. You mentioned how would you be fair and that type of thing. We would be very careful, and we go through a process of making sure that our questions are fair to everyone in that room, or in that everyone with a podium. And we would ask is this relevant? Is it fair to this person? Sometimes it is. Sometimes those hard questions are, and sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're really irrelevant, or sometimes you give the person the ability to explain it. Here's why it's not important.
Okay. So we were basically jumping around with the foundation and everything. In the foundation format, and when you're doing these types of forums with political candidates, it's really kind of open season. Anybody can get really involved and jump in without titles and everything. But in Prometheum itself, as a society, it is a men's-only society.
It is.
And a lot of people find that interesting. Now, for me personally, and I think a lot of people I've talked to about it, everything has kind of been infiltrated. There was always boy groups, girl groups, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. Now that's getting mixed. Girls go into the Boy Scouts because they can't do certain things in the Girl Scouts, but instead of trying to change the Girl Scouts to include more things, their solution to that is, no, you have to open up your membership. And you're really starting to see groups for men or boys diminishing and being kind of demonized as groups and everything anymore. So why are you choosing that format, and what are the benefits to that too?
We started out as that. As I mentioned, I got together with my cousins. We were very close, and we would socialize a lot, which means we'd go out to bars and such, and then we every Thursday we'd come to my place and do this, and it just we did a bunch of the guys, we weightlifted, and we did that, had cigars, and it started out that way, and then as we started to invite guests, we would invite the mayor, we invite all kinds of people. I'm not too sure that the girlfriends and then eventually their wives would say, you're meeting every Thursday and there's women coming there, and we can't come, type of thing. So that's how we started. The answer, I do get that question, and we're not anti-woman in any way, in any means, but we're a fraternal group because we choose to be. That's the simple, we just choose to be. And when you have a debate, there's a certain freedom of expression if you don't have the opposite sex there. It happens with women and it happens with men. That doesn't mean that those conversations with men and women aren't equally as good. They're just different. And we smoke cigars and we do those type of things. There aren't a lot of things for men anymore, so we want to, I guess, protect that. There's plenty of groups that I'm not allowed to, and I don't have any problem with it. That's fine. I think people should be free to have their own groups. We don't discriminate in any other way, but we also do a lot of things with the ladies. We welcome them. We do have debates with them. We do have all kinds of social events with them. Just our membership at this particular point is all men. We are even thinking about doing a sister group that's women. Let them have their debates too, and then we'll kind of do things together.
What are the interactions like when women get involved?
You mean in a debate?
Yeah, more along the lines of, let's say you said that it's mostly significant others in whatever case, whether it's a wife or a girlfriend or both that they bring. But when they come in, they obviously know that the guy that they're with has been taking part in this type of format, right, in this forum. And do you ever see reactions from them kind of stand as they listen to the person that they're with kind of interact? And have you ever gotten any responses from women like, this is really interesting, it's not what I thought it was going to be type thing?
Yeah, we've gotten that. We have. one of the issues is that if you and I are having a heated, we're on the outside of something, we just disagree, we just have a heated disagreement. Quite honestly, after the debate, you and I are going to have a drink. We're going to, talk about, going to the baseball game or something, whatever, the next day. If you're with your spouse, whomever that might be, they might not forget it as quickly. And I'm not too sure you want to, have to, if you have that same type of heated argument with your spouse, they might not be as, as forgetful.
And do you think that if it was a women's group only meetup, that they would be able to leave it on the table? I think that they would.
I'm sure they would. I think when you have the opposite sex there, again, this doesn't go for everybody, but in general, when you have the opposite sex there, you're a little more reserved in what you say, good or bad. You just are, and I might not be as aggressive with some of the ladies as I might be with you, for instance, and them, not that they couldn't kick my butt in an argument, but I just might not do it. It's just the makeup. So I think men and women do act a little bit differently. I'm not saying that that's the end all be all, but that's just that's what we found, and again, we just choose to be a fraternal group at this point. If you're interested in learning more about us, we have a website. It's prometheum.org. Our philanthropic group is prometheumfoundation.org. If you're interested in becoming a part of the organization, and you like debate and you're not sensitive, if your opinion is argued with, you can you can write us at information@prometheum.org. and tell us about yourself. To become a member, you have to be sponsored by one of the other members, and we do have a committee. We're very choosy on who we pick. We're not elitist in any way. We don't really care what you do or don't do. If we were elitist, I certainly wouldn't be a member. I wouldn't be allowed to join. But we do want gentlemen, and we want men of integrity, and we want men who like the debate and aren't offended because someone disagrees with them. So if anyone's interested, please go to write us at information@prometheum.org.